You're on TV.
Ready.
Ready? I feel strange having to read you guys' bios, but I'm going to read your bios anyway.
No.
So let's welcome our guests today, Mary Matalin and James Carville. Mary Matalin joined CNN as a Republican strategist and political contributor in April 2009 and now appears on a variety of network programs, including Anderson Cooper's 360, State of the Union with John King, and The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer. In addition, Matalin appears twice monthly alongside her husband, Democratic strategist and fellow CNN political contributor James Carville, exclusively on the State of the Union with John King. She has worked with Presidents Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and she's formerly held the White House positions of Assistant to President George W. Bush and Counselor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Matalin served as the Deputy Campaign Manager for Political Operations during President George H.W. Bush's 1992 re-election campaign and as a strategist for his 1988 campaign. In between the campaigns, Matalin was the Chief of Staff for the Republican National Committee. Matalin currently serves as the Editor-in-Chief of Threshold Editions. She has appeared as a political commentator on television and was formerly a host of CNN's Crossfire, CNBC's Equal Time, and The Mary Matalin Show for the CBS Talk Radio Network. In 1996, 1997, 1998, Talkers Magazine named Matalin one of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the country. She's also penned articles for opinion pages in several books, including Letters to My Daughter, which received recognition on multiple book lists, and All's Fair, Love and War, Running for President, which she co-authored with Carville. Mr. Carville, who is a local boy, is a Democratic strategist who serves as a political contributor for CNN, appears frequently on CNN's The Situation Room, as well as other programs on all CNN networks. Carville remains active in Democratic politics and a party fundraiser. He was formerly co-host of Crossfire, CNN's political debate program. Carville, an outspoken Democratic political strategist and commentator, emerged onto the national political scene after his consulting firm, Carville and Bagala, I believe, helped elect President Bill Clinton in 1992. For his work on the Clinton campaign, the American Association of Political Consultants named him Campaign Manager of the Year in 1993. He went on to serve as senior political advisor to the president. In recent years, Mr. Carville has not been a paid political consultant for any domestic politicians or candidates for office. His other well-known electoral successes include 1991 Senate victory of Harris Woodford of Pennsylvania, and 1990 gubernatorial victories of Georgia's Zell Miller and Pennsylvania's Robert P. Casey, and the 1990 re-election of Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey. Often referred to as the, this is my favorite, Ragin' Cajun. For his animated and colorful debating style and his roots in Louisiana, Carville began managing political campaigns in 1982. Before entering politics, he worked as a litigator at a Baton Rouge, Louisiana law firm from 1973 to 1979, and also had stints in the U.S. Marines and as a high school teacher.
The only thing that's wrong with that is a middle school or junior high.
It was a junior high school?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean,
And
old. We're both old.
he's written several bestsellers. So I'm going to leave it there and welcome them once again to our course. And
Wow. Thank God for Wikipedia.
let's start off talking about politics, generally, at the 100,000-foot area view level. We had the great pleasure of having Mr. Carville last semester with our class, and when we kind of took a poll of where the students are at the University of New Orleans, we are a student body of not supportive of politicians necessarily. A lot of students feel that politicians are dishonest. As a matter of fact, Soledad O'Brien, one of you guys' contemporaries, was on, she was the first guest of our course, and she actually said that she has a natural dislike for politicians. So what I would like to start off with asking you guys about and getting your perspectives on is, you know, is politics important? What do you think about politicians? And what should our students here feel about politicians? How should they be involved?
So you're starting on a question on which we agree. So you go, because you're very eloquent on this.
well, Yeah, there are plenty of things that you could say. I could understand why someone would be unhappy today, but there are plenty of things you could say about politicians. Politicians, you could say that they're egomaniacs and crooks, or they do or say things to get elected or reelected, all of which in varying times have varying degrees of truth. But the one thing that you can't say is what they do is unimportant. That is manifestly and patently false. What they do is terribly important. Now, I know Soledad, and she's a fine person. I actually completely disagree with her. I like politicians. It's a group of people. I would rather be around a group of politicians than most anybody else, because they do something that very few of us are willing to do, and that is they dare to fail publicly. That their foibles and their failures become the butt of late night jokes, they become the topic of conversation, they become the subject of ridicule, they become savaged in history or anything else. Their defeats and disappointments are not just shared with their immediate family or friends. For that, they do deserve some credit. So if it is a profession that is, and I agree with Robert Kennedy, he called it a noble calling. It doesn't mean priesthood is a noble calling. It doesn't mean that all priests are noble. So the question for you as young people is, and yes, and it has been it's been inadequate in delivering on things that it set out to do, but to be fair to politicians, banks haven't done much better, nor have other people. It's been pretty much of a bad run here. I would urge you, and because it's so important, and because it's a risky way, it's a risky endeavor, and as likely as you will win, you'll lose if you get involved in it. I'd urge you to get involved. You're right, we need good people in it. And it needs, obviously we need some fresh thoughts, a different way of doing things and things like that. So I could see where I would be skeptical of them, but I'm generally skeptical of any power. Be it the administration of UNO or the state or the government or BP or anything. I just have I think it's good to go into life with a kind of a skepticism about power, because history has taught us that it shouldn't be trusted.
I'm surprised Soledad, whom I adore, would say that. But I would say the opposite.
Why would you be surprised that she said?
Because that's sort of her. There's a synergy between journalists and politicians, and the founders knew it. And the founders said, Jefferson said, it's a choice between a free state and a free press. We need a free press. Everywhere I've traveled in the world, from Afghanistan to Iraq, when we were trying to stand up those countries, all the young people wanted to be journalists, because you cannot have a good political system without transparency, which comes through a free press. But I would say, in her defense, I'm not necessarily in her defense, there are probably more politicians who have an instinctual dislike for journalists than the other way around. And I dare say, if you were anyone in this room was followed around 24/7, and people were, and as they're following you around, videotaping every single thing you said and trying to make you look stupid or take you out of context or make it a gotcha moment, there might be some tension there, to say the least. But he's right, skepticism is good. It's always been good. There are some systemic and systematic problems in the system, and there are some bad guys in it. But most of the people that I've ever worked with, and including a lot of Democrats, there was a time in Washington where we all were Rodney King. We all were getting along and we were getting it done, which is, they come to it with an idealism that is pretty naturally occurring among young people. It starts when they're young, and they feel, we have kids who think they can change the world. I bet some of you think you can change the world, and they come to it like that. And that's not necessarily how the world works. It takes a lot of work to change the world, and you have to have a combination of realism and idealism. But I know very few people who get into politics at the national level, at least, and say, I'm going to get in there because I like money. It's not a money business. It's not an easy work business. I'm talking about the national level now. I presume it's different in some states and different locales, but we should be, if we're cynical about it, we're going to get what we deserve. You know, and the system at the end of the day does work because we can vote them in and we can vote them out.
Oh, if there's a cell phone you guys have that's on, it may be messing with your mic.
Left my headphones.
Well, you want them completely off
Yeah,
then?
they're getting into the wireless mics.
Okay.
Have two cell phones?
Because I got 2 kids, and I got this one who never
How
knows which
many,
number he's calling.
Oh, just a show of hands. How many of you did not grow up in metropolitan New Orleans? What?
Let me bring the discussion to
Discourse, rhetoric, debate, and discussion.
Damn.
In democracy, there's somewhere in the middle, right? And I think you guys occupy a relationship with one another that has to find somewhere in the middle. If you were to watch TV, listen to what's going on, you find very little in the middle discussion. And what I've noticed, and this could be from my own personal perspective, but I noticed there's been less patience and graciousness with being able to accept another person's point of view. And I'm a firm believer that's somewhat of what democracy gives us an opportunity to do. I would love to get what you guys' thoughts are on the national discussion and the meeting somewhere in the middle. Is that important? You know, how important is that versus standing on your views and your beliefs?
You want to go?
Well, first of all, if you want to know what persistently high unemployment in wars that go bad look like, this is what it looks like. Okay? You're not going to have, and you're not going to have the position that the United States is in, is you have a country that's got a war that's going, you know, wars that are not going well, and you got persistently high unemployment, and people are stressed. And this is what you would expect. If you come to politics, and this happens, if you view the other side as wrong, you can talk to them. If you view the other side as intrinsically evil, then you can't. If you say that so-and-so is trying to wreck the country, you can't compromise with them. You wouldn't if you were in a state where somebody was intrinsically evil and was trying to wreck you. You said, look, I think you're wrong, but I'll take 75% of being right and compromise with 25% being wrong, as opposed to I think you can't take any part of evil. And so it depends on how you sort of approach it. If you approach it from the vantage point of wrong, that's one way to approach it. If you approach it from the vantage point of evil and destruction, then you're by definition forced to be in a different place. I do think that there's nothing that would do better for the discourse in the country than 4.6% unemployment. Good luck waiting on that anytime soon. And probably we're going to, at a point, be confronted with the necessity of some grand sort of compromise here. Yeah, and who knows? The expression, and I really believe that it's true, is the darkest hour is just before dawn. And sometimes that's it. The boil has to bust before you can lance it.
Oh, well, I disagree with this because when there was 4.6% unemployment and there had been 52 consecutive months of growth and there had been a moving in the right direction on foreign policy, people were calling George Bush a liar and a murderer. So this conversation, this ugly conversation, preceded where we are today, and it sort of proceeded. You talked for 10 minutes without taking a breath, so please don't interrupt
What
me.
did I?
Because you were mumbling
Did I
while
do
I'm
it? I
talking.
didn't do a thing.
'Cause you can't hear yourself mumbling. You're mumbling while I'm talking, so I'll finish and then you can. And I wasn't attacking you anyway. But what James is right about is it used to be that when you disagreed with somebody, you did not think they were morally culpable. Okay, you just disagreed with them and you'd fight by day and you'd drink by night. President Reagan was infamously best friends with Tip O'Neill. George W. Bush, not George W., the daddy Bush once said to me on a plane trip somewhere when we were losing badly against Bubba there, we got to ask Danny what to do. We have to ask Danny what to do. And I said, Dan Coyle's going to tell us what to do politically. He said, no, Danny Rostenkowski, who was a notoriously Democratic congressman, hardcore Democrat, ward politician from Chicago, who was subsequently convicted and jailed for, I forget what, some political something. I still love the guy. He's since passed. But we didn't think each side was immoral. I think there is more of that now. Why is there more of that now? Because you're not, they don't work together. They don't have to sit in the same room together. They don't shop at the same grocery stores. This happened in our political lifetime. Everybody decided they're going to go live in the district, their own district. They weren't going to bring their families. When your kids are, you've got to stand in line at the bookstore with your kid, or you're at this coffee shop with, you just don't, we call it the green room phenomena. When we're sitting with somebody we're going to disagree with in the green room before we go on, well, you just cannot bitch slap them when you go on TV. It's like human nature. So if they're constantly, people are only living in their own orbits there, it can get dysfunctional. It's, you avoid that kind of human contact. I see some of that here, very little of it, because there's so much at stake here locally. And I see more at the state level. I don't mean the state per se, but as you go up the ladder of capacity to be detached from the people, it gets worse. And you add over that every force for good has an equal and reactive side. The information age is a great thing, but and I'm sure you've debated this, and there's a big debate going on in the world about it. The evil side of the information age is you can say anything you want about anybody, and it can be the most ribald, ugly thing. And as Rumsfeld used to say, everybody says, a lie runs around the world before truth has time to put its shoes on. So you've been through that. People say ugly stuff about all of us, and you just got to suck it up. And it's unfortunate. And the most unfortunate thing is it makes people who have something big to contribute not want to get in the process. Starting with Colin Powell, that's why he never wanted to run. You don't want to put your family through that. So I think my whole point of this was it's not peculiar to this time. It feels worse in this time because there is a lot at stake, but it certainly was not absent pre-Obama.
Well, it's actually Mark Twain that said that.
The previous guest we had before you guys was a guy from BP, who I'm good friends with. We're on the Redevelopment Authority board together, and he's actually a black attorney, just been working for BP for 5 years, and I thought he had a pretty good roundabout go with our students in here, and I said I promised them that they would get to hear James Carville on BP next week. So I would like to kind of discuss where we're at now, because it ebbs and flows. We're somewhere very different than we were technically 60 days ago. But what's the state of things now from both of you guys' perspective on BP?
There was but I don't trust him. Okay, just it's just get it on the table. I'm very, very skeptical. New Orleans, in my opinion, I think in history's opinion, and factually, Harry Shearer has just a wonderful movie out, The Big Uneasy.
Oh, man.
Oh, man,
Is it
it's
good?
really good.
What is the name of it?
The Big Uneasy.
And it's a good class movie, too.
And there's something that I want to really, really infect you with. In terms of what happened in Orleans, to St. Bernard, and a part of Jefferson, never call it a natural disaster. That's the N word. We don't use it. There was nothing natural about it. It was a massive engineering failure. What happened on the Mississippi Gulf, what happened in St. Tammany, what happened in Plaquemines, that's natural. The storm came in, big surge came. That happens in places. What happened here, what happened right here at UNO, this was not natural. This should not have happened. The design was there, it was in place. It wasn't even, it was barely a Category 2 that was over the lake here. What BP was a giant tortfeasor. They were out operating dangerous equipment in a dangerous environment with a profit motive ahead of the safety motive. They were taking risk that they had no business taking. That's a fact. They'll say, well, it wasn't all us, it was a Transocean, or it was Halliburton, or it was Anadarko, or they had some sort of, and let them figure that out. Now, do they want to, did they want to close, as Obama called it, the damn hole? Of course they did, and everybody wanted them to close it, and thank God it's closed. The problem here, from a policy standpoint, is the Oil Spill Act of 1990 makes them the primary person responsible for the cleanup. So if the attorney that came out to speak to you guys is paid for by BP, he of necessity has an obligation to the shareholders of BP. His first obligation is not to you. And I understand that, and so so if it's a decision of if it's good for you, or if it's good for, if you're a fisherman or you're a motel operator or you're something like that, it's good for BP, legally and morally, he has to do what is good for BP. If he doesn't, he could be sued by his own shareholders. So I think we erred in the way that we set it up. Now, this man has no choice, and by the way, he's a lawyer. He knows that whatever he says in here is on tape, and he knows that it goes to trial. A enterprising trial lawyer will subpoena UNO and get this tape as easy as you can get anything in the world and say, let me show you what you said, you know, and you said, you told these kids, look, I have to be honest, my company was outside the bounds. We were doing some stuff out in the middle of the Gulf that no rational person would do, but we had to make a lot of money, and London was putting a lot of pressure on Houston, and Houston was putting a lot of pressure on Deepwater Horizon. You know, that's the way corporate America works. I mean, the orders come down to produce so much profit, and to hell with everything else, and boom, oh no, can't say that. Although we know that's what happened. This is not it's not a big mystery what happened out in the Gulf. And the only way that it won't happen again is if there is ultimate accountability for it.
This is a testament to Professor Mayfield's ability to make friends, that you would get somebody. There's nothing in it for him to do it, so you must be a good friend to him, too. You want to hear something ironic, because it goes to the point, the larger point about communications of the whole class. This is an irony. The guys who did the commission on the last spill or something, I forget, the big 2000, the Jim Baker Commission. Right. So they sent me the whole this whole stack of stuff. Ironically, Tony Hayworth, is that was his name? I forget. Hayworth. His predecessor was bad.
Brown.
Tony Hayworth was trying to change things, and he was changing things. It's a slow boat to turn around, but because he was such an egregious communicator, you know, like under a lot of stress and all that jazz, he just said so many of the. You don't have to have a lot to just. If you're so wrong, you only have to do it. What, he had 2 horrible bad things that he said, and that even if they were a great company and none of it was their fault, although they are the biggest perpetrators of the unsafety in there, he actually was trying to change that culture internally, and by all accounts was making grounds. But his own performance, which goes to the point of being able to be, I tell my girls this all the time, Why do we have to give speeches? Why do we take? If you don't learn anything else before you go out into the big bad world, learn to communicate. Think before you speak. Think about what it is you're saying. If you're so stressed out that something's going to accidentally come out stupid, don't get in that. Just don't say anything. I mean, you can never get in trouble for something you don't say, right? I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying there's a little irony in there. BP is by far the worst. Everybody else is now covered in this dog do sandwich, those who did have good safety practices, but in the end, we'll all be safer, and we've all learned a lot.
You know, right in May, I guess it was like early May, they go to Baton Rouge or something. I came back, and I said, you know, I was getting ready to go home, so I won't stop at 1179, which is a Italian restaurant under the bridge. Yeah? Yeah. Mr. Joe's place. And so, and he's like a good friend of mine. So I go in there, and it's myself and Sherman and, you know, Bart, the usual suspects.
The posse.
And so, and Admiral Allen and I had been switching phone calls. So I get this voice and it says, "Carville, Thad Allen, come here." So I said, "Oh, Admiral, Corporal, you know."
This was after he blasted
After
away.
that,
When he
since
went out,
I was like guns a-blazing. And so he said to evidently, he says, "Do you know who this is?" And I said, "Yeah, I know who it is. It's Tony Haywood." So we're sitting there like it's Thad Allen, me, and Tony Haywood. And like the whole place was like you could hear a pin drop. You know, people are like, "What the hell's going on there?"
the Three Stooges,
And
Larry Moe and Curly.
so we, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I said, we missed each other. I had to go down to Columbia. I just finished working on a presidential race in Columbia. And so Alan says, "Well, you know, actually I spent 2 years in drug addiction in Columbia. You know, really liked the place." And Haywood said, "Well, one of my children was born in Columbia. I ran BP at Columbia for a while." So we sort of talked about Columbia a little bit, and it was kind of going kind of. And he said, "You know, some of the things, Jim, you've been saying out there are not very helpful." And I said, "Well, Mr. Haywood, they were not meant to be helpful. I wasn't trying to help you, honestly." And he said, "You know, we really, we want to do the right thing, and I think you're going to see that we are." And I said, "Look, I'd love nothing better than to be proven wrong." He struck me. He was a kind of nice guy. You know what I mean? Kind of, you know, have a gin straight up with, and you know what I mean, a gin and tonic, and sit out on the veranda and, you know, be a raconteur and tell stories, fine. But I mean, he just happened to be, and I think he probably took over a bad company and probably was trying to clean it up, and he didn't get to, you know, the operations in the Gulf of Mexico fast enough. But that's not my problem. You know, because they all sure took all of the when John Brown was making all that money. You know, having said that, yes, and I only said, "Look, I will say this to you." I did. I said, "This is like free advice, so you can take it for what it's worth." But I would find in my public relations and communications, I would find one person that I trust, and I would kind of rely on them, because it just strikes me as a distance that you got too many people telling you too many different things, and it's kind of leading you straight. He said, "Well, thank you," and I actually got his phone number. I don't have my cell phone, but he gave me his phone number. I got it. In myself.
But even for you, we wouldn't call him.
So you know, Mr. Jones.
Can I say something positive about politics to bring it back to where we started? Because I haven't seen this for a long time. The commission that the president put together, that Bill O'Reilly and Senator Graham from Florida,
they're pretty good.
Usually these things are like, you know, let's just chew up the clock until, well, both of those guys, dead serious, took it straight to the Oval Office, told the truth. The hearings that they had here, I don't know if any of you went or followed them, they were good, solid hearings. They listened, the people came prepared, and they took that back, and they are making a difference in the policy going forward. Bromwich is listening to them. It's just a good example. People don't, there's nothing in it for Graham or Riley to be doing this. They did a good, honest job, and the citizens here gave them good, honest information, and they're having an impact on the policy, particularly the moratorium.
Well, let me tell you a story, and Mary's right here, so she can vouch for every word of it. We went down there, and I guess it was late April, you know, some month after the spill.
1 month exactly.
We went to the mouth of the river with the governor, Anderson Cooper, CNN, the head of Wildlife and Fisheries. And we were in a boat for 2 hours. And we saw all, and we did not see a single person doing a single thing. Nobody. It was utterly nothingness. And everybody said the same thing. It is so quiet. I'm not saying this is, and I went bananas on TV. 3 weeks ago, we went with Admiral Z, with the Coast Guard helicopter. We were up aloft for 2.5 hours. We went all out to Wrigley's, across the mouth of the river, out to the relief well, back up to Grand Isle, and there were people everywhere that you could see. You couldn't look out that helicopter without seeing skimmer boats, crews, God knows what not. Now, if you don't, and this is something in Louisiana, we are way too lethargic in some ways. We don't scream loud enough. But if you want to get heard, you have to erupt. I'm serious. You got to say, look, there's, because in every word I'm saying, she's right here. There wasn't a person. And then 4 months later, you can't look out of a helicopter and not see people moving out there. And I mean, it's boom everywhere. They got more boom. I don't know what I don't know how they're going to get rid of the boom. Somebody, if you were a boom manufacturer, you made it. And we didn't see any. And the boom that we saw was completely soaked in oil. Now that's a fact. And the one thing happens when they say if they decide they're going to move something, they're going to move something. And the lesson I took from that is scream louder.
Can I add to that, though? We had a pretty good inside-outside game going on. While he was screaming outside, which got antenna up, Donna Brazil was inside.
Yeah.
You know, you got it. There was a lot of people moving around inside.
Donna, yes, no, Donna was the whole time. Lisa
Jackson
was a great American.
And they didn't. They could not shout.
They kept right. They couldn't shout. No. It was an orchestrated attack. But the point is that you have to do these kinds of things. They're unpleasant. They're not any fun when you're doing them, but they are necessary. It is one of my roles is to be every entity, every place needs an agitator, a promoter and an agitator. And if you don't agitate, and you just accept what's given to you, you're going to get the short end of the stick.
Just recently, last week, maybe you read about it, there was a protest by some students on campus towards the higher education cuts that's been taking place at the state. And of course, I know Mr. Carville teaches at a private university, Tulane University, but it's his second visit to a public university that he doesn't have to do. And of course, Mary has always talked about UNO, public education, public things. We have an affinity for these kinds of things. But I would just like to, we had such a good time last semester, I think, giving a perspective on public education and these cuts in Louisiana. Where are you guys at on that?
It's you're right in the middle of it, so I don't want to say anything that's going to get you in trouble.
Right there, in fact, I spent Verge?
Yes.
You got to get him down here. I spent a half hour on the phone with Verge this morning. We're trying to. You're part of the LSU system, all right? There's two things that happen in Louisiana. I mean, there's several things that are going on. The first is that the way that the state budget works is everything is dedicated except for higher ed and health care for poor people. And there's no, in contrary to all myth, LSU is not organized. There's no alumni chapter in New Orleans. The Baton Rouge people don't have anything to do with the UNO people, who don't have anything to do with the LSU Shreveport people, and the medical school people, have anything to do with the law school people, and the blah, 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 blah. In fact, and I had a very knowledgeable person, because to make a some quiet inquiries about LSU in the legislature, and the truth of the matter is they just irritate everybody. They will probably make things worse. If you want to be heard, and the governor is not an LSU guy, he's with the Brown, and it's not, and so we come across in the legislature as arrogant. We think they're stupid, and it shows that we think they're stupid. And our alumni doesn't raise any hell. The students are kind of like, there'll be 50 students, they'll protest some cuts, and that'll be it. And the way to be more effective is to go through the list and see, like, people at UNO grads that are in positions of responsibility and call them and see if you can help them activate and be part of it, because they contribute to things, they're part of whatever. And like, so I'm doing this, and I'm going up and gonna see some people and say, well, our alumni, we're not, if you go to University of Florida, if you're the Manatee County, Florida, there's a Gator chairman, and then there's a committee. And then something happens, and then University of Florida calls this person, and they said, look, the legislature's trying to do this. They completely activate themselves. They call them, they raise money, they have a PAC, they have anything you can imagine. We don't have any of that. We're horrendously under-politicized. So if you're a legislator, and the only thing that you ever hear out of UNO is they got 50 kids, of which 40 don't even live in your district, and half probably, you know what I mean? You don't care. And that's, if I could emphasize one thing to you, it's to be effective, you got to make yourself heard. And so I'm actually, it's funny that you bring this up, because Verge and a couple other people and myself are going to, Verge is the number 2 guy in the athletic department. He was a kind of all-conference linebacker. He's actually married to Dutch's daughter. He is a very well-connected guy all over the state politically. He could be they have assets that they're not in any way, shape, or form using. And a lot of the leadership, they don't know politics. They think that they're strange kind of people, and they don't deal with them, and so they come across as arrogant. And, and they kind of Bigfoot things, and LSU is really not that effective, and and it's not that they're bad, they're just kind of clumsy. And they do the whole good. But and I'm glad you brought that up, because we're going to enlist you on our little team here. It's too bad you open your mouth, because it's going to cost you some.
Let me add to this. Reiterate the point from a different perspective on the larger theory of operations, without getting to the substance of this. Agitation is good, but it's necessary, but it's insufficient. When you have agitation, you have to, just like the inside-outside game, then you have to come back and have something. You have to have some version of a solution of what you want, okay? You can't just say, you suck, you're stupid, and we're just going to keep making a lot of. That's just not, that's what he's doing. He's making inquiries, he's pulling a team together. They're going to go up there and say, you know what, we can't take this. We cannot take this cut. Here's what we have done at I don't even know what the substance of this is, but we've made these cuts. Here's what we can do. Here's a solution for you. Here's, you've got to bring the other side of it. If you're just agitating, then you could just be Saul Alinsky or something like that. Just know that there's always an outside-inside game. That's not a bad thing. For every agitator, you got to have 3 people who are like you, how you run your stuff. You've got for every beautiful, wonderful, brilliant thing he says, there's 50 people behind him, right, that are making it all happen and spinning all the plates and everything. It's just not enough to be screaming and demonstrating, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying then, and maybe you did try to do this and you had to agitate because you've tried as he did it for 3 weeks, to talk to the White House, and they didn't listen to him. But I still think if the insiders weren't coming behind and saying, here's what you can do to make this better, Maybe it doesn't apply in this case, but
Yeah, I think you can have a solution, but I think that the one thing that politicians don't like is pain. And if
yeah, but the way they get to the solution faster is if you help them think it through. I'm not a goody two shoes on this. It's just it's the Riley Graham solution. It's why you're pulling it, you're sucking it, Irvin into this and everybody, because you're going to go not just make them feel pain, you're going to show them a way to
one of the
escape
things,
future pain.
one of the most damaging, devastating characteristics of Louisiana is this: is we're going to go outside and have a nationwide search and get the best person there is. All right? That's what you get Greg Medford, you know. That's what you get. Who was this clown Blakely or whatever his name was? You know, he was like from Berkeley. He was the finest man in the world to do this. And so what happened is, and so Lombardi is from the Florida system, and Mike Martin is from New Mexico, and they're talented, smart people, okay? But this is a place, we have our own way of sort of doing, and we have like some of the most talented people in the world. We don't have the confidence that we do. And look at, like Irvin is like one of the, we're leading a whole renaissance of a culture here. And all of the only people that are going to save us is us. There's nobody coming in, and it's always the thing in New Orleans, we're going to get this person. No, they got more talent here than any place I've ever been. We just have to nurture it, bring it up, and feel confident about it. Nobody, the only people, is going to save us is us. And that's my kind of general view. And so the people that care about higher ed in the state, we need to figure a way to organize the thing, and like anything else, or like the auto dealers, or like the municipalities, or anybody else that's in Baton Rouge that's at the legislature, the LSU people. There's an LSU party for the legislature. Somebody asked, Ella Brennan the cook, Irvin to come in and you know what I mean, do a couple of numbers there and circulate students around and talk to the legislators and do this kind of stuff. No, we don't do that, because the attitude is we're higher ed, we're LSU, why would we have to do that? We're just sort of there. And, hey, if we won 11 football games, it's pretty good.
But there's no future for this state. There's no future for the country. The founders knew this without an informed citizenry. If you don't have public education, you're not going to have an informed citizenry. We're going to have a class system. We're going to be England. We're going to be France of yore. So there's huge national, global implications of a vibrant public education advocacy. I'm not saying, just to clarify, when I say outside, inside, I don't mean outside the state. I mean,
I know, I didn't think you would.
I meant like everybody in the state who cares about it, but some people going behind the scenes saying, like, Paul Rainwater?
Yes.
He just these kind of Garrett, okay, they can talk when they have to talk, but you need workhorses too, so I'm glad you're pulling that together like that.
Let's go to something that's really exciting. 2013, you guys are the Super Bowl chairpersons. What are your plans for 2013, and am I getting a Super Bowl ticket?
The most frequently asked question. And you will be earning it, Irvin.
You will get the Super Bowl ticket, and it will not cost you $1. But you say it's the most expensive goddamn ticket I've ever got in my life.
In man hours, yes. In fact, that's why we're having to leave early today, because the commissioner and all the NFL national sponsors are in town. So if you weren't teaching, you'd be playing at the house tonight.
Think of this. Okay, think of this. New Orleans, Louisiana. We're sitting here, it's 2011. Coming up on the books, NCAA men's regional, NCAA women's final, NCAA men's final, BCS championship game, Super Bowl. Anybody know what 2015 is going to be? 200th anniversary of the Battle of New Orleans. Right. All right, we may not be from Wisconsin, but we're going to milk this for everything that it's worth. We're going to have reenactments. We're going to have everything in it. What's 2018?
300th.
Tricentenary of the city of New Orleans. And we are going to go, and our big thing with the Super Bowl is we want to do gangbusters job where we in the 5 to 6 year rotation. And to come back and say, look, it's our 300th anniversary. But I mean, by God, look at everything that we've been through. And we got many other things that people are talking about. Like, I would love, who is the new chairman of the NCAA? Who's the new head of NCAA?
Who is it?
Mark Emmerich. And where was
Oh.
Mark?
Nice.
LSU Baton Rouge.
Nice.
Big Louisiana booster. I'm going to go to Mark, and my ask is going to be, we want to be the first people to ever host a men and a women's Final Four. We can do the women at the New Orleans Arena, the men at the Super Bowl, Friday, Sunday, the women play, Saturday, Monday, the men play. First time it's ever been done in history. At the tricentenary, you're going to have the President of the United States, the President of France, the President of Spain. You're going to have all of the people here. It's going to be a huge event. You're going to be, all this is going to be happening while you're young. The fascinating things that are coming. This is the city of the future. All of this is coming up. And coming up in 7 years, all within 7 years. And again, it's not going to stop there. There's more things that people are, that people have scheming and plotting and things to do. But we're going to have, one of the things I want to talk to Urban about, really,
One of the many things.
is to do, I'll do work in Seychelles. There's all these places I want to do in New Orleans. I want to try to get to the French ambassador. In fact, I'm going to a thing here at the consulate to do a summit of Creole culture all over the world where there have been French rule at one time, and there are people of African roots. I want to bring this just to criteria. There are places in the Pacific to do different music festival, things like that, and do that in New Orleans, to do all these kinds of things that we can do that are coming up here. But don't you dare leave this city when you graduate. There's going to be more happening here than there is in any place in the country. And all these things I told you, you can all verify them. They're all on the books.
We talked a little bit last semester about, what types of things you would insist upon for a Super Bowl. For instance, we may not necessarily find, music from San Diego during Super Bowl, or these are the things that you're.
Is there music from San Diego?
I'll just pull that out somewhere.
There's good weather from San Diego, okay.
I'm a cultural ayatollah. I'm serious. Anybody that has a party and has something that's not Louisiana, I'm going to take a bat and wreck it. Or any kind of music that's not from here. Now, I have a big nerve, and I laugh about this, but we need somebody to say, we're going to protect our culture. It drove me crazy during the Saints parade, and they had somebody was playing some other kind of music, and and the St. Aug's band was coming, and I couldn't hear them play when the Saints go marching in. That's where you go to the parade. You hear St. Aug's play when the Saints go marching in. They got some boom box going in the background. What are you doing? Jump that thing down. But no, and nobody, man, but we got to go. Nobody has done more to not just preserve and protect, but to advance our culture, understands that more than Irvin does. And if you need to understand that you don't live in a city, you live in a culture. And if the city of New Orleans survives and the culture doesn't, this place will be a colossal failure. Because without a culture, we're nothing more than a not very prosperous city of 350,000 people. With a culture, we're the most interesting, fascinating place on the planet.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you guys, we've done this, our word association. You've done my word association 2 months. So to make this really quick.
It has to be because
It has to be quick. I'm going to give you the word. You say the first thing.
Right.
I'm going to go to James first, then Mary, so you can cheat. And
Oh, you're giving us the same word?
well,
Okay.
you want? I can switch it up. if
Okay,
you
no,
want.
that's all right.
All right.
It'd be like, am
So-
I really married to him? We get in the same planet, let's see.
All right. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to take one question from a student, and then we're out of here.
All right.
All right. All right. James, what is your favorite word?
Yes.
What is your favorite word?
Love,
What is your least favorite word?
No.
hate,
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Our kids, all of the above.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, the threat that New Orleans may not exist, or the idea that New Orleans can prosper, is really what gins me up.
What turns you off?
People who can't, people who despair, people who, this is not word association, but it goes to what we've been saying here. When we moved here, it surprised me how, it still surprised me. You've been here for almost 2.5 years. People are like, thank you for moving here. Why wouldn't you want to live in a place where people like you are doing everything at every level to preserve and advance, as James was saying, the indigenous, most unique, beautiful music in the world and everything that goes with it. Everything that the city has, why wouldn't you want to? And we live here, and the despair, and I get it, I understand it, how horrible Katrina was and everything, but to never think that there isn't hope is...
Selfishness. But you know, the cultural thing is kind of funny, because my kids they asked me to go to Pinkberry, and I started screaming out, "You're not going to Pinkberry, get the snowball, we don't goddamn yogurt here, what are you doing?" And they're going,
It's
"Dad,
Hanson's or you just sweat your ass
Hanson's,
off.
you don't go anywhere, you understand me? We don't do Pinkberry." And they're like,
So
"Gee,
they
what did I
sneak
do
around.
wrong?"
They have fresh fruit. Can we just have a fresh, or we get another one for Jesse's?
James, what is your favorite curse word?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Good question.
You know everyone in the book.
Well,
so
you
there's
know,
no, like he
And
can't.
somebody said blank is a blanking good adjective. I used to like know guys, and you knew this too, that would split words with the F word. They couldn't even, it said so many times, they would split, like Donaldson, Eftonville, Baton, New, F and all. They couldn't even get one right. I don't know. It's I've used them all liberally. I'll confess to that.
Mary?
They serve a purpose, and I'm saying this as a mother of daughters. Somebody gave me a mentor when I was in my 30s, because in campaigns, everything is not just bifurcated. It's like every syllable is the F word. And some man, sort of my contemporary, very smart guy, very successful, came goes, you're pretty and you know what you're doing. He goes, that trash mouth, it's just not, just don't. But it was a campaign and he was forgiving. When my daughters, who are at that age now, I could see why they're doing it, and it just try, if you can try to think of a way to make your point without using the F word, which is really, really hard, but you have to do it if you have kids, you'd be surprised how vast our vocabulary is.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a sexist. It's something that is really off-putting about females.
Let's go to the next point before you get in trouble. What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, shit. Easy. Urban Mayfield, any frogman, anybody, just name them all, you know what I mean? Louis Armstrong. The funny thing I was thinking about this is like the two of the most significant vocalists in American history, neither one could sing, Louis Armstrong and Hank Williams. I mean, you think about it, no one would listen to either one of those two guys and say, man, I'm confusing that with Nat King Cole or something, okay? You just wouldn't do that. But what they had and why they lived forever is they had passion. And it just came
and they
out.
had fun. They had fun.
And they had fun.
And they loved what they did. The three, again, this peculiar, absolutely unique to this place, three sounds that I wake up every morning counting my blessings. The church bells, which they ring all the time and they play songs at dusk, and you don't hear that in every city. The streetcar, and the first time I heard you hold the note, look, I'm getting goosebumps. When you hold that note, there is a physical, visceral reaction. Everything you do is beautiful, but when that sound of that note at that pitch, and you hold it and that look on your face, That's an experience.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Kids whining. Anybody whining, just whining.
James?
Yeah, people that should be thankful and grateful at wine.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, if Ronald would find me a piano player, I'd like to pick up the piano, since I am an accordion player, you know.
Yeah, they once asked John Conley if he could do anything in life, what would it be? And he said he'd like to be able to play the piano. I think if you were like a really good piano player, it would be kind of remarkable because you could sort of come home at night and sort of entertain yourself, you know? I don't know why. There was
You do that now, honey. You don't,
yeah.
without musical accompaniment. You have it down to a science. A pretty good art form, too.
But there's something, I think, you know, there's no way I could, but I think most people would sort of long to play the piano because it just, I don't know, it just seems sort of like a really cool thing to be able
Yeah,
to do.
because no one can do what you do. Like, that's just God-given and, you know, once in a million.
yeah,
But people can sit down and tinker around with the piano. That's a fun thing.
You know, people don't realize how, what a funny thing is, Larry King with the mayor of Sacramento, come on, played in the NBA, he dates, the Kevin Johnson,
The new guy?
no, he was the mayor, I think it's Kevin Johnson, played in the NBA, it's pretty good. And so, and people like see Irvin Mayfield play the trumpet, or they see somebody play an NBA, or they see something. And so Larry King says, well, you know, you play basketball with Obama, can he play with
Oh,
you?
yeah,
And
I
I said,
remember
oh,
this.
come on, Larry, it's like an NBA, a professional basketball player. I mean, because everybody thinks that, oh, I could just, if I had that bat, I could hit that ball, or if I could play that, and you can't do that. You can't do that. You just can't be done. It just, you're not going to go out and ice skate and, you know, twirl around and be, you know, Nancy Kerrigan, whoever it is.
What
Just
profession would you like not to do?
be a dentist.
Or a dental, no, that's not true. You know, I think, I have sort of a George Plimpton thing. I think all labor is,
I think it's good. Yeah, no, it's like,
But the question is, what profession would you like not to do?
I don't like, this is why I got into politics. I don't like anything that's boring. I used to work in the steel mill, and you get there at 8 o'clock, you check in, 10 o'clock, you get a cigarette break, we all smoked. And so at 8:30, you start looking at the clock, tick, tick, tick. So as you get out of your cigarette break, tick, 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 lunch. That, any profession that is a quiet desperation.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
She was a good mother.
James?
well, I'll give you this much. You gave a shit. That's
All right, we have one question. Who wants to have the one? All right, we take two really quick.
It's got to be quick. All right, we have,
Okay, in the November elections, are the Democrats really going to lose 40-plus seats in the House,
Yes.
8+ in the Senate?
probably.
Okay, do you think that the BP disaster played a huge role in that?
No.
And do you think that the environment before 2008 led to where we are now, or is it half and
You
half?
should be in the
Is
White
it-
House press corps. That's three.
Is this a three-part? I mean, is it? Do you think that? Can
Yes,
we
no,
get
yes.
somewhere by November, or are we just looking?
I
at
mean, look,
2012?
things, you know, look, the caveat, things happen, but, you know, and this is what it kind of looks like. This is, you know, and it's going to be, you know, and it'll go beyond for a while until.
You know, there's kind of like, if you look at 06, and you look at all the data, this question is too long, books have been written, but the data about what people think is the problem, what they think is the solution, has not changed significantly since 04. The way politicians have addressed it has. And if the Republicans who are going to sweep don't scratch that itch, they will be wiped out in 2012.
I'm sorry, but we have got, you know, we don't have a.
Let's thank our guests,
Thank
James
you.
Carville and Mary Matalin.
He's shutting me up.
We have a way of doing it. I don't believe it.